Hi, today I'm going to discuss theta grid adjustment rules. Now, theta grid adjustment rules are used to specify certain ways we say things in the target language that are dependent on the exact words that are used. Now, here's an example. So, the way I wrote this is Paul did morally bad things to Mary. Okay, that sounds good like that. But when we generate, it generates this down here. Paul sinned Mary. Okay, so what it did is it took do bad things. Bad things became sin, do sins. And then that became sinned, the verb. But it doesn't sound right. Paul sinned Mary. What we could say is Paul sinned against Mary. So I'm going to show you how to make it come out like that. So in order to see the theta grid adjustment rules, we click on Generator, Lexicon and Grammar Development. And then I'm going to expand. Over here on the right, you see where the rules are. And the first one with a plus says Complex Concept Insertion Rules. I've already talked some about that. Today I'm going to be talking about the other one that has a plus down here. It says Theta Grid Adjustment Rules. So I'm going to click on the plus sign. Okay, so first of all, there are theta grid adjustments for events. So events means verbs. And here I'm going to make an adjustment rule for sinned. There are also adjustment rules for adjectives, object attributes. But here I want sin, the verb. So I look at the range of the alphabet. Here we have roll through start. So that's where we want for sin. Click on the plus. Then I'm going to go to theta grid adjustment rule for sin. So now I'm going to double click on that, sin. Okay, so we have sin that someone sinned becomes sin that someone committed, or sin that someone sinned becomes committed. Seems like the same rule. That's funny. The first one, what's the difference? I don't think there is any. I don't think we need that. Okay, so what we want is to generalize this to have a destination argument. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a noun phrase. So I click on noun phrase, and now I'm going to put the mouse between the right border of the sin noun and the right subjective clause bracket here. Click that, then click again on the noun phrase or right after it. That put in a noun phrase. Now I want this to apply for destination arguments. So I'm going to require that let's see. I think I need to find out what's the difference between these two things. I don't think there is any difference. Okay, well, let's keep going. Okay, sin that someone sinned, and now I want this, this noun phrase to have a certain feature. I'm going to click on that and say that it has to be a destination argument. So I click on that. And then I want this rule to come into effect even if we don't have this destination argument. So I'm going to click on optional and now click on this phrase. Okay, so that made it optional. Okay, then if we do have that destination argument, I want to insert a word into there. So I'm going to click in the middle of this destination phrase down here. Okay, and then I'm going to want to use a target word for English. I'm in the English grammar here. And the semantic category will be add positions or relations in a semantic sense. Click on this and I'm going to click against. Okay, so you see, because this preposition against is particular to this particular verb, that's why we had to insert the target word against. I don't think we might have a relation that means to be against something. But anyway, for English, it's appropriate to use this target word. So now it should come out sin against. Now, to tell you the truth, I don't know why we need both of these. I think this structure could be deleted. But until Todd verifies that, I'm going to change this one in the same way. So I'm going to add a noun phrase. I'm going to make the feature destination. And then I'm going to make that optional. And then I'm going to insert word in the output structure. Pick I'm going to pick a target word. Add positions. Against. Okay, so I made that rule like that. Now I want to create another rule that will take place even if we don't have this structure where we have sin that someone did. So I want to use a simpler structure, someone did a sin. So what we want to do is insert another rule. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down to the first version and I'm going to say copy this structure. It says, do I want to make that copy? So I say yes. Okay, so now we have the second structure. Now the reason I did this was because I want to change the first version. So that would be the original version, not the copy. And so I want to make a rule that doesn't require this relative structure. So what I'm going to do is delete some stuff. I'm now in the first of the three structures. I'm going to delete this noun phrase there, delete that bracket, delete the clause, delete the end clause. Now I have a simple sentence. Someone sins to, which will become against someone. Here I want to get rid of this relativizer. Maybe that's why that was in there. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to delete the relativizer. That doesn't belong there. We don't want that. Okay, so now there's a clause and it has some agent. Somebody sins to someone, and that will be sin against someone. Okay, this structure isn't right anymore, but I don't have another example. I'm just going to put x sins against y. Okay, so that explains what it is. So we have that structure, the simple one, and then we have the two with the clause that I'm really not sure why we need two here. And so you might say, why did I do things so that I got this structure in the first place? That's because with these complex rules, it always tries to do the last one of the structures first. And if it does the last one, it won't try to do the first one. So we want to put the more specific and complicated structures last, the one that involve the relative clause. Because if we did it the other way, it would do this one, and it wouldn't replace it wouldn't do this other thing, like inserting the relativizer that. To tell you the truth, since it's keeping this relative clause, it might be adequate just to do the first rule. So because it's keeping the relative clause, so I think probably we could just keep this first structure and get rid of the other two. But sorry for the noise. But I'm going to leave it this way for now. But I think really we only need this first structure. Okay, so let's see what happens now. Let's see what happens if I click generate. Okay, it comes up with Paul sinned against Mary, which is just what we wanted. So that explains what the theta grid adjustment rules are about, how to put a new structure in that system. You need to make sure that the rule is on. So if you look over at these rules, you see some of them are off. And the reason they're off is because they aren't needed. So unless you do something like this, where you're going to insert against or something else, you don't necessarily need a specific theta grid structure for a particular verb or adjective. But here we did, because we have to tell it against. Another thing is, notice that for this verb, the destination argument, we're going to use against, even though for most destination arguments would have to, that you'd say you went to someplace. So this is a little bit different, and it shows why the theta grid rules have to allow the possibility of individualized adjustment. We're discussing right now possibly making some generic theta grid adjustment rules, but so far this is the way it works. You have to have a separate theta grid adjustment rule for each verb. Okay, thank you for listening today.